Hello, my name is Sarah Dirks, and this is Person First Language for Special Education for Administrators. How would I define Person First Language? It's the practice of identifying the person first versus any sort of identifying characteristics, and specifically, obviously, in regards to special needs. It's important because a lot of times if you just refer to the person as their disability, then you're taking away their humanity, or you're not seeing them for what they could do. You're seeing the limitations versus obviously their ability. Who does this affect? I put this in here because obviously in the context of this class we're talking about students who are identified as special needs, but I think we need to take this into account with any sort of diversity, whether that be race, gender identity, sexual orientation, religion. If we just see our Muslim friend or our Black friend or our friend who identifies as our trans friend or something, then we're taking away a lot more of that person. At the same time, there are a lot of people who might use that identity as their own, and so when we are referring to them, just be very cognizant of our words, but also honor that person and how they would identify themselves. This is really important, especially in like IEP meetings or meetings with parents or meetings with other teachers when you're talking about students, so we see them beyond their disability. So in my building, some of the things that I've heard are when we talk about the mentally ill student or the crazy kid or the crazy student. I think it's really easy for educators to drop the crazy word and not see the student beyond that, and not see that yes, they might have a mental health disorder, but at the same time, is that the only thing that's keeping them from being successful? The Down syndrome kid or the Down syndrome student is pretty common. I think it's really easy, mainly because you can physically see that disability. And so I think that's one that I've heard a lot. In our building, the kids who are diagnosed with severe physical or cognitive disabilities are in room 102. And so a lot of times we say they're a 102 kid. I'm dangerous. I'm just as guilty of that as anybody. The BD kid, the behavior disorder kid, the kid who has issues, I think that's another one where we see them as their behavior and we don't see them as a person. The blind student, the deaf student, those are pretty common, or things that I've heard in my time on teaching. So instead, what can you do? Well, you can talk about the kid, the student who maybe has a mental illness, or a student with a mental health diagnosis. And even just using the words mental health issues it has such negative connotations, and we have to be very careful. The student who uses a wheelchair, the student who is blind or has a visual impairment, the student who has Down syndrome. So when you identify them as their name first, then you humanize them. So I found this picture. I thought it was a really great visual representation. When you say the autistic person, what that says to the person you're talking to is that the whole of them, the whole piece of their puzzle is autism. Whereas if you say the student or the person with autism, you recognize that that's a piece of who they are, but it's not all that they are. Always remember to see the person first. And this is regardless of whether you're working with a student or when you're working with other adults in your building, when you're working with parents in life. This is just an important thing to know. And then also, regardless of whether the student has a disability or not, as an administrator, you're going to work with students from all areas of life and all walks of life. And so if all you see is their issue, all you see is their disability, all you see is their color, all you see is whatever, their socioeconomic situation, the poor kid, then you are really just taking away such possibility. And so because of that, I found this quote and I really liked it. Just words can light fires in the minds of men, and they can wring tears with the hardest of hearts. So you can have a kid in your office who has special needs, and So, for example, we have a student who's on the autism spectrum, and he just had a really rough day on Thursday. And so, if the words we used were harsh, then that kid might not have been able to come out of his spiraling behavior. And if, like when I was talking later about the student with their teacher, there was, his autism can cause issues, but do we try to see past that and see the ability of what he can do? And it can crush kids if all we see is autism, or if all we see is Down syndrome, or all we see is the disability. The reference I used was the one from Kathy Snow. You had 3 or 4 things from her website, and so that's the one I used. Thank you.